Yeah, so we're structuring it as like a festival, meaning there's multiple things going on. So Friday night we're going to have opening ceremony and everybody checks in, and then Saturday everybody's going to go to their trip leader for whichever hike they choose. So we're running different hikes for different like activity levels. And then after the hikes that night we're doing a group dinner, and then we have live comedy and live music. And then Sunday there's a workshop. We actually have Jen, she's a local, she runs mushroom, mud and moose. I might have gotten that wrong, and she's a forager, a local forager from Prince George. So she's
what?
Forager. So she does.
What's a forager?
So you go into the bush and you pick like fiddleheads and different plants. And what does this tree do medicinally?
Okay.
So she's run a few workshops for us that have been amazing.
I love it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So she's going to come out and run a workshop, and then there'll be another option for a hike Sunday. So it's just about community and creating the space for people to come together.
Hello, I am John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those guests watching us from around the world, Prince George, an absolute fabulous area, is in northern British Columbia. And how big is British Columbia? Well, it's a big, big province with lots of nature, lots of trees and animals, and an amazing place. Prince George is about 500 miles, or for our European friends, about 800 kilometers north of Vancouver. And today, a very special day. We have a lady by the name of Meg Keir, and Meg is a friend that I've known for quite a while, and she is also very much into nature. That brought her here to Prince George, and she has developed a business around nature and hiking, and really helping people to enjoy and to discover northern British Columbia. So for all our friends out there, watch her podcast for one. She will tell us about it, and then get in contact with her for those that are around here, and find ways in which we not only can discover northern British Columbia, but discover even more through hiking. Meg, welcome on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, you've been in northern BC for quite a while. You were in Vancouver, and then you have a son. What's his name?
Mackenzie.
How old is he?
He is 13, turning 14.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
That's such a beautiful age.
Yeah.
Because then they get semi-mature.
Yeah.
They can now start dialogue, and obviously I already saw from your bio, he enjoys nature as well, like his mom does. And so tell us about what your background is. Where were you born, your education, your background there, and then obviously you spent time in Vancouver, and then what happened, what made you move to Prince George, and all the other things that follow.
So yeah, I was born in Vancouver, grew up on the coast, and then the Okanagan, kind of went back and forth. I had my son when I was 21, so I had plans to go to Capilano University to pursue outdoor education, and then that shifted obviously when I had my son. So I kind of lost the outdoors for quite some time. I had actually gone on the West Coast Trail, which is a 7-day hiking route down in Vancouver.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I actually broke my ankle on,
on that particular tour?
On the trip, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It was before my son was born, but I broke my ankle, and that's actually what it gave me, like, an insight to what you could do in the outdoors when the Coast Guard or search and rescue came to rescue us off of the trail. It was two women. I don't know if they were Coast Guard or if they were search and rescue or they worked for the West Coast Trail, but seeing women in that capacity, in that field, like out in nature, helping people.
Was it an inspiration to you?
It was very inspirational, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so, okay.
Yeah, so then I moved up here for a relationship about 11 years ago. The relationship didn't last, but I fell in love with Prince George and the surrounding areas, the nature, had a good job. My son had been raised here for the last, however many years before we split. Yeah. And now, I've stayed because of the company.
So the company's name is Guided by Adventure. And I find that an interesting name. So first you started enjoying the outdoors yourself very much, and then from there on in, did you think there was entrepreneurial opportunities here, or?
So I've always liked the idea of being an entrepreneur and running my own business.
Right.
It was my great grandfather started his own business that then my dad and his brothers had run. So I kind of grew up seeing that. And then I started in the fitness industry. So I knew very much that like movement was what healed me. And so that's how I started into like this industry in a way, because then I found nature was also so healing. So then you combine nature with movement, and it was kind of like an aha moment, right? So I also knew I was good at creating space and creating community and bringing people together. So then I combined like going on little hikes with how do we get people out to do that maybe wouldn't do it without that structure to it.
Right. So you worked for one of the gyms in town, Good Life, I believe, for a period of time, or you were managing it for a period of time.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And so when I was working at Good Life, managing it, I started doing guiding on the side. And then eventually after COVID, I decided to take a step away and focus on the business full time. I think COVID was a pretty big like perspective shift on like what matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that again is Good Life is one of the larger gyms in town and very, very popular, obviously. And so doing the outdoors, you have to be in good shape, reasonably speaking. I'm not saying everybody should be, but at least if you're going to go on a hike, this is not just going down the block and then to the other block and there's a coffee cup and then from there. No, it's not like that. It is more than that, right?
It is, for sure. We do have a hiking club as well.
Okay.
And so what that is, it's in town. So it's all like local. I say that they're easy. So like they're rated easy, meaning that they're more accessible to more people, and they're all just about an hour in length. And that is how a lot of people started joining. So they'd come out, we would go walk Padurni or Elsie Gun, and then they'd build up their confidence, their stamina. We would kind of talk about things that they could do to get ready for bigger hikes. And then a lot of people that started off thinking they could never do big hikes have now progressed from like the in-town shorter stuff to the bigger hikes, which is awesome. So
I find it interesting because I kind of believe that on their own, not many people would necessarily go on a nature walk. And then on the other hand, from what I've seen and what I've heard people talking about, is that it's much more than walking. It is really discovering nature and all the things around it. So of the tours that you do, they are a distance away from Prince George, I presume. How do you get there? Do you have everybody driving there? You have a bus? Or what?
So I used to have a van. It was a 15-passenger van. But I just realized that wasn't a great business model. A, for liability. Driving everyone around wasn't the safest. And then B, if I wanted to grow, I can grow in other ways. I can hire other guides, but I wasn't going to go buy like a fleet of vans. But the biggest thing was just the liability issue. So now we meet in town and then people carpool, which is, it works out a lot better, honestly.
That's again, you know, with businesses, and especially where there are not many models of those kind of businesses around here that I know of, or anywhere else for that matter that I know of, is that you have to then discover what does it look like, the business, and how does it make it viable, and how does it attract people, is somewhat that you have to invent. For all intents and purposes, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
So how did that all work?
How did the company come together? Yeah, it started off, like I said, just kind of from Good Life, and I was teaching group fitness. So it was like that, bringing people together for movement and seeing the power of that.
Yeah.
And then the van was like, oh, I can get people to the trailhead, so we don't have, 15 cars driving down the road.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then it just kind of, it grew. Like it grew into what it is. There's guiding all over the world, right? So mountaineering, ski guiding, hiking.
More all the time, actually.
Yeah.
So timing probably was critical. I believe around the world everybody was, I don't know if it has something to do with that or not, but COVID kind of affected a lot of things, maybe that as well to a certain extent.
Yeah, in regards to like making it boom, you mean? Or?
Yeah, and people wanting to get out and enjoying nature.
Yeah, it definitely, COVID, everybody was outside. Everybody discovered that they were a hiker and they wanted to get outdoors. So it was, even though there was a lot of challenges that I faced opening up a business in the middle of COVID, it was also like a blessing because it was one of the only things people could do was come out and hike with me.
Exactly.
Yeah, and people found that they were wanting to get outside.
It feels good.
Yeah.
And then you discover, especially, it's in a way, obviously you're very familiar with that as well. I go to a gym, have gone for probably 14, 15 years, saving except for COVID. But, it makes a huge difference to have somebody guiding you along, like in the gym or, doing, how do you stay active, mobile, and with nature. I would kind of think that getting guidance in terms of where to go, how to go about it, how to manage your own body, and how gradually I like this, that I want to do more of it, and especially when you have a group together.
Yeah, I think, and those points that you mentioned are definitely reasons. And then a lot of people too here, if they're not hunters, they're a little fearful of like the wildlife, right? We obviously have a grizzly population and lots of black bears. So people are nervous to go into like the mountains, into the backcountry with the wildlife, and also they're nervous just to get lost, right? So, and then they don't maybe have someone to go with, so.
Yeah, those, again, for our, the listeners from the major communities like even in BC, southern BC, it's always amazing to me how few people are aware of how beautiful this province is and all the nature that we have here. But a lot of people live in the big, probably, what would you say, 80% of the population lives all around the Vancouver area and Victoria and to a certain extent, the Okanagan is already beautiful. But northern BC, I think, is unique. Soon as you get north of Hope, through the mountains are beautiful as well. But once you get here, it's a whole different world. And for even when I first came here, I was 23, and that was 60 years ago. To see a moose or a deer or a black bear, I say inconceivable that you would have those here. And for us it's normal. We are sitting in downtown Prince George, about a population of about 80,000 people, probably another 100,000 in the region, northern BC, or 150,000 maybe. And every area is unique. So much of nature is here. So for you now, do you find most of your clients are local or regional?
Yeah, that's how it started, and I was so grateful because, again, my idea was to start a hiking company and utilize the beautiful terrain that we have that's like untapped. People don't know it exists like out here. They just think of Prince George and they have no idea. But then COVID, so I was so fortunate to have the locals support, and so it has been mostly local for the last few years, but we have started having people from Vancouver, the Okanagan, and Smithers come.
Is it about 5 years ago that you started it?
I guess it would be 4 years now.
4 years, okay.
Yeah, so it is starting to grow, and we are expanding into the Okanagan now, which will be exciting because I believe that like we'll build a base in the Okanagan, and those people we're going to try and get to come up here on tours, and I know the people from here will come down there. So I'm excited to talk about northern BC to our guests that we have down in the Okanagan. So
yeah, especially for around the world, I find that more and more that the outdoors is becoming more and more attractive to people from Europe and from all over the place, especially in places like this.
Oh, absolutely.
So you have a website, or?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is your website?
www.guidedbyadventure.ca.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
www.guidedbyadventure.ca.
Okay.
So it's all on there. We use our social media a lot, which is amazing. Like, to have free marketing capabilities to reach so many people. I don't know how people ran businesses before Facebook and Instagram.
But the world has come so much closer together, right?
Yeah.
So that what we find is that with our podcasting, it's global, right?
Yeah.
And so we got podcasting people from Peru, Berlin. There's just people that come to mind. New York, Europe, any area, Central Europe, Eastern Europe, all over the place. And
cool.
It gives me always an opportunity to showcase part of northern British Columbia and saying Prince George, northern British Columbia, and it's an absolutely unbelievable, fabulous place with all the wild and life, but it's also structured in terms of that it's not only going here and then taking the plane down here and take buses, but to connect to somebody like you on your website and then book into some of the tours that we are doing is something that will be an absolutely unique experience, because there all of a sudden, even for the people from the coast, for all intents and purposes, there is always a fear of wildlife and weather. That once you go into the bush, okay, now I'm lost. Now what do I do, right? So that's sort of a thing, and so to use your holidays in particular, or if you has a hobby, want to go for a weekend and then travel, to have somebody that is familiar with the area and the region makes it much more valuable from a perspective of, okay, how was your trip? What did you enjoy? What did you see? And saying this was an amazing experience, and I'm sure that most of the people that do that will feel that.
I hope so. I mean, it is a hard draw with Prince George, because you know how other places, let's say Jasper, for example, you do have people coming from all over the world, and there's so many tours that they can book into, and we don't have that. It's just this company, really. There's beautiful restaurants and things to do, but there's no other like structured tour companies. And of course, we don't really advertise Prince George as a place to come visit, right? So, and I don't know if we ever will get there, just based on what our industries are and Tourism PG's focus.
If it was up to me, it would be.
Yeah.
But I can only do so many things, and that's why I start all the time. You say, oh, there he goes again. BC, Northern British Columbia, it's Prince George, and on and on. If Simon doesn't do it, or Mayor, and I love him dearly, but saying, hey guys, I don't think collectively, I'm not blaming Simon now, but collectively we not doing as well as we can and should.
Yeah.
I look around here, just between you and me, sitting here, right, saying that there we have this beautiful region. I call ourselves the capital of Northern British Columbia. Doesn't mean that we should now say, well, we direct everybody else what to do. No, but we are regional, the capital, because the air, rail, road all run through BC. We can, if we do it well, take on a leadership role and help others as being the hub, and saying, okay, I go here, what is there to see? Well, we can have obviously Barkerville for one. We have all these other things. The old growth timber east of Prince George is absolutely unbelievable sight to see. We got all the lakes, we got all the other tours that you have in Prince George. But I think that we should have, this was the forestry center of northern BC, still is to a certain extent, but at one point in the 50s we used to have 600 sawmills here.
Yeah.
600!
That's wild.
Yeah, all around us. And there we have this beautiful park here. We can see it virtually from here on River Road where I have my company. And there we have that, the potential for what I would do is say, okay, let's develop a city like it used to be in 1914. You know, and that as soon as you drive up to there, you open the gates and now you walk into 1914 Northern British Columbia. We have the location. Where's the imagination, guys? We just sit here and say, oh, it's not good, blah, blah, bitching and complaining, you know, and even the city council, as far as I'm concerned, hey, guys, come on. You know, so, you know, it has huge opportunities.
It does, and it's, you know, I don't know the workings and like the behind the scenes stuff of what it's like to run a city, so it's easy for me to just say, like, I feel like we're missing opportunity, but...
Well, we do, you know, and I know how to run it. You know, I've been here for 60 years, so trying to run a business, and you know, how proactive are we? Yeah, we're doing pretty good, but not quite as good as we could do. You know, so you know, in terms of from a tourist perspective, we can do a lot more, much more proactive. But we have to believe to have you, the customer, believe. And, and I think people like you do that with your nature tours and walks, and to see people coming from all over the world here. But there has to be something to see here. And there is, but we have to have a structure around that.
That's the thing, and it would even be like, let's say for an example, if I don't have the funds behind me, but if the city even did bus tours out to the ancient forest, you know, they have the capital, it's just something so that when tourists came in, they were like, oh, the city is providing, Tourism PG is providing, there's something going on. And again, I don't know the liability or the logistics.
Same with Good Nature Park, you know, and so we've been, Jim Good, and, you know, we've been very, very involved with him for many, many years. But it's a park that is just absolutely, and you've been there.
I've gone there quite a bit,
and as one of your tours, likely you're around there. And so you're doing it in your world and saying, if you go down there, okay, but it's so unique about it. Well, if you read on it, Good Nature Park, it's all on the website, then Jim has for his whole life been collecting plants and trees from all over Canada that are all in his Good Nature Park, and all the pathways. It is amazing. Are we doing as much for him as we can? No, we're not. And I'm just bother me if they like it, if I say that, I don't say that. I'm not being, I'm being proactive critical and saying that I walk the talk. I'm trying to do my best to say the region, BC, is the most beautiful place on earth as far as I'm concerned. I love Canada, I love BC, I love in particular Northern British Columbia. But we can do more.
We can do more, yeah, absolutely. No, I agree.
And say, how do we attract people to come down here? And what is so unique about it, where we got used to it, for other people saying, wow, I cannot believe it. Every time I fly, and I fly a lot, on commercial airlines, I sit on the window. I always sit by the window. I look outside. It's paradise. It is paradise. How lucky we are. You know. So then, there's my rant.
I know. I could say so much to that too. Just I think. I feel like Prince George has to have faith in itself, that it can be more than what people have said.
If we don't believe, why would anybody else?
Exactly. So I think that's the challenge that it has right now.
And it comes, the leadership comes from our leaders. And I don't want to put my finger at Simon, but he'll probably talk to me about it next week. I hope he does. Or he says, okay, well, tell me more about what you guys were talking about. What can we do? Open the door, you know, and get the public involved, you know. So we've had a tough time in Prince George. The sawmills, lumber industry has been a challenge, and you know, but on the other hand, it's still an absolutely beautiful province. There is lots of opportunity, even still today, as far as I'm concerned. But we have to believe, we have to be proactive, you know. So you know, so those kind of things. So give me a typical example of some of your tours that you're doing and saying there. I say, Meg, I want to come down there with my family, and we want to do a tour, what do you suggest we do?
Yeah, it would depend what kind of tour you were wanting to do, right?
Yeah.
So we've
Nature.
we've done things that are more like, I would say, front country, let's say, where they were packages that I would try and put together. So it would be, we would go out to ancient forest.
Right.
And then it would be that you have a hotel room to stay at, and then you'd get a dinner at Batula Burning. So I tried to incorporate and collaborate with local businesses.
I like that. So you being proactive there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Trying to do things like that for people that weren't interested in necessarily getting to the backcountry.
Right.
And then I have had families come saying, like, we do an adventure vacation every year. We want to go backcountry camping. So it would just be getting to know like their dietary restrictions and their abilities and all of those kind of things. And then taking them out backpacking for like a few nights. And then usually I cook the food for them and set up camp for them. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Yeah.
So and you get people from outside of the country as well doing that, or?
So there are a lot of people coming from outside of the country to Prince George. Not yet, because it's that coordination issue of like, I need to get on board with like the airlines here or the airport or hotels to kind of coordinate, which was my original plan.
Yeah.
The beginning of this, but
you got Chamber of Commerce involved and all
I was with them for a little bit, yeah.
How come a little bit?
I just didn't really see the benefit of being, I feel so bad saying this on camera, but
I feel the same because I used to be a member. I don't think be a member right now. And the reason that I do, if I get excited about things and you guys don't, then I'm in the wrong place, right?
Yeah, I personally, as a small business, it found that like for the cost of it, I wasn't seeing any benefit. I know. Yeah, I was told like that it would be advertising would be good and we'll post you on your social medias, but I do a heck of a good job with my social media.
Yeah,
and I don't need, I feel like I have a lot more reach than the chamber locally does. So I'm sure that, there was some great things that they do provide, let's say insurance for your employees and stuff like that.
Well, same for me and same as podcasting. The social media right now is extremely powerful. We can get exposure all over the place, even for us in our podcasting, looking at YouTube. I think we got 76,000 subscribers. By the end of April. We will have 100,000.
Yeah.
100,000 that look at our podcast where I'm talking about BC, I'm talking about Prince George, I'm talking about all the things that are important to the region.
Yeah, the reach is amazing and we have the ability to do those things.
Our newspapers don't do anything.
No.
I so with all due respect, so we have to have people together that are willing to give ideas. Where do we go from here? How do we get there?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But first you have to believe, because with all due respect, if people that are in leadership, if they don't believe or they don't know what the picture looks like, then the best solution is to do nothing.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's not good.
They just get frozen.
Yeah. So, but there are huge opportunities. And what I see, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the future looks brighter and brighter all the time for places like, if you look around the world, and all the problems that are going on in Eastern Europe, but also affecting Europe because everybody's afraid of what's going to happen next there. Look at the Middle East, look at China, look at South America, look at all those other places, and then saying, there we got BC, in a place like this where there is tranquility, stable government, relatively speaking, but in all the opportunities, that more and more people, that I know that from my friends and podcasting all around the world, that everybody loves Canada, everybody loves Northern British Columbia.
Yeah.
And British Columbia, and and it has immense potential from a perspective of what you are doing. And now there's something else happening here. I noticed this on June 21st to 23rd.
Yeah, it's our little hiking festival.
Can we see that, or do we have another picture of it? I hold one up for the camera. Oh, I do it on camera. Which one?
On the screen.
This one? Yeah? Okay. So,
I think it's up on the screen.
oh, wait a minute.
I appreciate that.
There you can see. Yeah, I'm supposed to be a very good podcaster. So
great.
much for that story.
Yeah.
No. Anyway, so I'm just being funny. So anyway, so yeah, that's where it is. So tell us about that, Meg.
Yeah, so the idea came, it was pretty simple. I was looking at a mountain bike festival in Valemont.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's mountain bike festivals and rock climbing festivals. And
Valemont is how far east?
so it's about an hour and a half east, also super beautiful, untapped.
Beautiful area.
Yeah, right in Mount Robson Provincial Park.
Yeah, which is unbelievable.
Beautiful, yeah. So I realized that there's no festival, there's nothing to bring hikers together.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the idea came simply from that. Just why don't hikers, people that don't necessarily have a need for speed, we're not mechanized, meaning we're not on bikes, we're not on skis. We just want to get together and we want to promote the, longevity of the places that we love, and we want to get together and build community, and that's where the idea came from.
Okay, so this is Little Hiking Festival. So you organized it, or were one of the people that organized it?
Yeah, so it was I'm organizing it with my partner Kate, who runs the company with me, and then my friends Dave and Cheryl. They live in Wells. I don't know if you've been down to Wells. It's the town that's right beside Barkerville.
No, I know where it is.
Yeah. So
if you go, that's the town you go through first. If you're from Cornell, again, Barkerville. For our guests watching us from around the world, very, very, very unique. It's the gold rush days before the 1900s, right?
Oh yes, yeah.
And so how they got there, I've gone through their graveyards there, and I see a lot of people that are buried there in their early 20s, and where they were finding gold, and they had to go through all the Rocky Mountains. Can you imagine how they got there?
I know. I actually think about that every time I drive to Wells, that people did this with horses and by walking and by foot. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And then still a lot of the infrastructure is still there in Barkerville.
Yes, yeah.
And still not quite developed to the way it should be, but still an amazing place to see.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. There's a lot of heritage there and history, and Wells is like the artsy town that lies before Barkerville. And so yeah, my friends Dave and Cheryl, they own Frog on the Bog and White Gold Adventures.
Okay.
So they're running this with me as well. Dave and Cheryl had put on something called the Seven Summits, which was outside of Wells. So it was a hiking and biking festival or challenge, and you would come and you would hike all of the summits and bike them in one day. And that was something that they had run, and they ran currently, it's called the Gourmet Ski. So they've put on a lot of events in Wells over the years. So they're definitely co-streaming this with us. And
so here you got it from June 21st to 23rd. So what do people do? So they sign up for it, and then they come from all over the place, I presume?
Yeah, so it's obviously open to anybody, just as a festival would be. We do have people from Vancouver coming, the Okanagan, lots of local people.
Europe?
Not Europe, not yet, but hopefully one day. It's our first year, so I definitely wanted to keep it small and needed to figure out how do you run a festival.
Well, and that's exactly the way to deal, because it has huge potential, right?
Yeah, I believe it does.
You could do it every year, even if it stays smaller and gradually grow.
Yes.
It would develop then continuity, and people already looking forward to it, be expanded even longer and tie something else into it.
Yeah.
I think it's huge potential.
Yeah, I honestly do as well. There's as we've mentioned, how hiking and being outdoors blew up over COVID.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people wanting to get outdoors, joining hiking clubs, having guides, going solo.
Yeah. Give me some ideas so that I know, sitting in Europe, I want to go there. The more I see, the better. Even if you had from this get a video of some sort, at least from a part of it, that you can put on your website in some form.
For sure, absolutely.
People can get a basic idea, So, but I believe that has huge potential. It is nature in its truest form, and secondly, it's financially doable. you know, it's not staying in hotels that cost you $400 a night,
Yeah, exactly.
or anything like that. And it is as close to nature in an organized structure that you can, all the things that you hear about, you will see or get close to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're structuring it as like a festival, meaning there's multiple things going on. So Friday night, we're going to have opening ceremony and everybody checks in. And then Saturday, everybody's going to go to their trip leader for whichever hike they choose. So we're running different hikes for different like activity levels. And then after the hikes that night, we're doing a group dinner. And then we have live comedy and live music. And then Sunday, there's a workshop. We actually have Jen. She's a local. She runs mushroom, mud and moose. I might have gotten that wrong, but and she's a forager, a local forager from Prince George. So she's
what?
Forager. So she does.
What's a forager?
So you go into the bush and you pick like fiddleheads and different plants. And what does this tree do medicinally?
Okay.
So she's run a few workshops for us that have been amazing.
I love it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So she's going to come out and run a workshop, and then there'll be another option for a hike Sunday. So it's just about community and creating the space for people to come together.
So what I'm saying is that, you know, from June 2nd to the 15th, 2 weeks, initially for a week, you bring people to the center here, and then you have something like this. And then what else do we have? But I always believe, and I've said that for the last 40 years that I've been here, is why don't we, how do we give people a reason to go here and to stay here for at least a week?
Yeah.
Make them go to Barkerville, make them go to other places, develop our dump that is there now into something that is attractive. So there all of a sudden you create a community the way it was in 2014 or 2014 when Prince George was incorporated.
Yeah.
And then you build all the houses, one street with the houses, people walk around like they did then. You can even dress up if you want as a guest being there. That you can spend a day in Prince George the way it was 2814 and see a sawmill running, and then how people interacted with, you know, so you go into the gate and all of a sudden you're back 120 years.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be beautiful?
I mean, that's why I love Wells so much. I think it's like that. But I absolutely agree with what you're saying. Just if people could come here and we could give them opportunity to do things. Another thing I wish we had was like a e-bike rental center, and then a paddleboard. Like I rent paddleboards out. But again, small scale. I don't have the infrastructure. But there are so many lakes that are within like 15 minutes drive, and they're beautiful and wild.
Probably 100 lakes within a half an hour around us.
So many. There's a fact that Tourism PG uses about how many lakes. And yet we don't have the ability to rent on full scale to tourists that are coming in, but we could put together like amazing packages. You could have a day of paddling, a day of biking, a day out at Good Sir, a day out at Ancient Forest. Like there is so much to do here.
So what I'd like to see is the city of Prince George, Simon, I hope you're listening, is, you know, you know, you buy the horse, you ride it, Simon. That's the way it works. You know, so then try to turn Prince George in the regional center into a community that everybody talks about and saying, we want to go there because I want to be there. My holidays is I want to go to northern BC, stay in the Prince George region, because from there on in we go in all the different directions and we want to stay there a week or 2 weeks.
I agree. I think it's endless,
But would be amazing what it would do to our community.
Tourism is amazing. Like, you know, if for communities to have.
But you have everything that you need that other people said, if we just had something to attract it, we have it all here.
We do,
So we just have to believe in it ourselves and just say we make it happen, you know. So that's my view on that.
I agree,
Sorry.
We just need to get other people to start tour companies here, I guess.
Well, and you know, and create an inspiration for, you know, people that are here and saying, you know, this is an amazing region, northern BC in particular. I say a lot of times when I'm on that kind of a path is that I believe 80% of the GDP, the gross domestic product in the province of British Columbia, is coming from northern BC. And I usually look up behind me towards the south and say, don't forget it, you know. So because I think we have to spend more of the capital in northern British Columbia. And I think we're not getting the best of it.
Yeah.
So where do you go from here?
Oh, that's a good question. I just want to produce quality and like experiences that are memorable.
Yeah.
And so it's just expanding in like a proper way, and whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
I do struggle with it in Prince George because we don't focus on tourism here. So sometimes it feels like I'm one person trying to drive tourism to Prince George, which is daunting. And then it's hard for me to obviously find other guides or other outdoor educators within the city. So it doesn't mean I'm giving up. I have lots of resources and lots of friends and lots of things that I can lean on and colleagues in the field. So we just keep growing slowly. And then, like I said, expanding into the Okanagan is going to be, I think it's going to be amazing because there's going to be instant business there in the Okanagan. And I'm hoping to draw some of that up here as well.
I hope that, you know, the City Council looks at this podcast, you know, in terms of saying, you know, what else can we do? There you have somebody that's made a major commitment of your life to northern BC and attracting tourists to northern BC. I say the same. I've been saying that for the last 50, 60 years, is that, you know, bring people into City Council and give them ideas and inspiration. And I'm not trying to be critical, but at the same time, you know, obviously we have lots of negative because of the forest industry and all the other kind of things right now. But still, there are lots of opportunities and people that are willing to make commitments. And having nature all around us like we have is a huge opportunity.
It's huge, yeah. So we'll just keep moving forward and supporting the people that have supported us since day one and building the community and creating events like the hiking festival and just kind of keep seeing where things can take us. So
yeah. So the other part, so Mackenzie is 13 now, so he's going to school.
Yeah, he's going into grade 9 in September.
Exciting, eh?
Yeah, it's wild. It's a wild time.
Yeah, time goes by so quickly, you know, if you look back.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so the other parts is that you know, I think we can do more in terms of training and education. The college has done well here, and University of Northern British Columbia has been a big addition. I think we have to go further in that, though. You know, with all the resources that we have available in Northern British Columbia, is finding trades has been a challenge for us in a lot of ways. You know, so yeah.
That's interesting. Like, do you find that it's hard, even in your field, to draw people to Prince George?
Extremely difficult.
Yeah.
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 You know, and the skill sets here are, you know, the danger is a lot of people came to here, got skill sets that they brought.
Yeah.
A lot of those people are now retiring the next 5 to 10 years when they came during the boom years. And, you know, and we are not replacing them.
Interesting.
You know, and I think what we need is like BCIT down the coast. We should have a model like that here. I call it the Center of Excellence, I call it, where we teach skill sets.
Yeah.
And, you know, and the college does a certain amount of it, but I think we can do more.
I'm surprised we don't have something like that, you know, because like you said, we are the northern hub, you know, and there's so many things that people could go into here that,
exactly.
Yeah.
And what I always say is, you know, that we have the resources. I'm not only talking Lumba now, but the resources in a general sense in northern British Columbia. We have the infrastructure, roads, rail, air, all of that running right here. And when I made the commitment to the College of New Caledonia, and the name is on the building, the Trades and Technology Center, and I'm very honored by that, you know, for helping out there. But I've always been involved in that, and but I think we have to do more If I look at BCIT down in the Lower Mainland, I think there's 40,000 students there. They're just spending another 250 million to build more infrastructure. I said, build it here. You know, not all there. I'm not disagreeing. I went down there, I did a presentation, and my God, I got into BCIT, and I said, my God, where do I go? You know, so it's so huge, right? So,
totally.
But I think we have to do more of that down here.
So what's your outlook? Do you believe that Prince George will grow in the way that we're both thinking it could? Or like, it's hard, hey, to know what the future holds for...
I've always believed that we are there. I've always believed in Prince George, and I may sound, I'm positive about it, but at the same time, you know, you have to inspire people. You know, you have to believe. If you don't believe and you are a leader, then nobody else will. But I simply say it is clearly obvious that in your field in particular, with nature and natural, that people become more and more aware of what is the most important thing for people now in families or in people in the general sense, with their kids and other things around them that are so important in their lives, and for them is to find peace and tranquility and opportunity for making a good living. But we are one of the few people around the world that have it all. Relatively speaking, peace and tranquility. You know, we have jobs available to us. We have obviously absolutely beautiful nature and all of those things. And you know, so it's the envy of a lot of people in the world. And I'm not sure if we always fully appreciate that here. You know, like I grew up in, I was born in 1940, at the beginning of the Second World War, and in the northeastern part of Holland. And we were, 5 years was tough, you know, for my mom. My dad was drafted into the Dutch army, and for 5 years they didn't know. The last time they heard from him was in the bombing of Rotterdam, that they flattened, and they didn't know he was dead or alive for 5 years, you know. So, and my mother had 3 kids. I was the last one, and especially I still remember as a little kid all the bombers overhead that were bombing Germany. Allied forces, hundreds of bombers. The sound I will never forget. Then I remember the winter of 1944-45, the coldest one on record. And there was no food. You know, they had cut off all the food supply, and it was coldest. So I remember still, even now, the feeling of hunger. Even now, nearly 80 years later, I can still feel it. You know, so in the cold. And we as kids, my sister was 1 year older, my brother 2 years older. Every morning we would go with gunny sacks into the railroad yards and pick up anything edible or burnable. And the reason that we did as kids is because the Germans would kick us in our back, but they wouldn't shoot us. And the following day we'd be back. You know, so, but we were liberated by the Canadian Army as part of the Allied forces, April the 12th, 1945. You know, so, and it made such an impression on me that I, you know, that and right behind the schoolyard from here to the cake there was a schoolyard, and there were about 25 Canadian Red Cross that were stationed there for probably about a month. And every morning we would go down there, and they would give us bread with butter and the cheese and the butter was bigger than the bread, and everybody was called Johnny, and we obviously didn't speak the language, but we did, right? So you know, so that made such an impression on me that I always knew not if, but when I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada.
So and you can see now that's why this place means so much to you.
So the but a lot of people don't realize, and especially not if you're watching the news now with the Ukraine and in the Middle East, and then other places in the dictatorships like Korea, Venezuela, Cuba, South America a lot of times, and Hungary on the verge of it, I guess, and you know, and looking at that, and potentially the United States with the, what is his name, Trump, you know, potential dictator, you know, so that, and the reason that I said I don't get involved in politics in the United States, but no, the United States is looked at as a leader of the free world. That's how they started 250 years ago, have been the model of a democratic country, and it's now at risk. And that means it affects us all. So if I make a comment about it, it's not I'm involved in that. I'm simply saying that if you still, which they are, the leader of the free world, then the free world has the right to comment on that, because it will directly affect them. So the other part that but it's important to me is that some people think that war is that when the war is over, everything goes back to normal. Well, that's simply not so. It will take a generation, sometimes more than a generation, two generations. I've seen it in my own family. It affected them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah,
you know,
and
so,
still impacting, right?
Yeah, very much so. Even me, you know, so yeah. So saw far too much that we should not have seen. PTSD was part of my life, still is, and then the other part is the inner child. You know, we had a lot of kids in the fear of losing that parent, you know, that the anxiety always stayed with them.
Yeah,
you know,
I can't imagine.
Yeah. So, and I got counseling for that actually when I was 50, you know, so very emotional. You know, so those things, that's why I feel about Canada the way I do, you know, so it's, you know, it's, we are so fortunate. Yeah. But to appreciate it in terms of what we have compared to a lot of other people, you know, we are very, very lucky.
Yeah, do we take it for granted maybe? We don't even know, you know, what we have.
And saying that some people that wonder about it then try to go to Russia, guys to go to North Korea, those kind of places. Yeah. We are so lucky. You know? And so that's important. And then especially we in northern British Columbia, you know, so. No,
I agree. That's why I'm so passionate about this place and about promoting it and sharing it. Yeah. It's you go anywhere and you're like, wow, nowhere is as beautiful as where we live.
The key, Meg, is what I do is I'm vocal about it. And, and it may sound sometimes I'm critical. I'm not being critical, but you know, I simply say, hey guys, you know, the opportunity is there. They're standing by the door. They're knocking at the door. Yeah. They want to come here. It doesn't take much effort. Yeah. You know, so well, at least be supportive of it, and you know, so and like people like ourselves, you know, I think, and I'm not bragging about it, but in my podcasting last 2 years, over all the different medias, we had up to 20 million people see our podcast.
Yeah, and there you are doing the work of the city and tourism, promoting it.
Apparently, you know, it's like trying, you know, trying, you know. So, and then people like yourself too, and you know, media, the major media right now is extremely powerful, and only just starting, right? And not being critical of the newspaper here, but that media has past.
Yes.
You know, so it's now much more anywhere else. And if we would be doing virtual, I'd be sitting there, and then this other person is maybe in Athens, Spain, Peru, wherever, on the screen, and it feels like I'm sitting with them, like you and me.
Yeah, it's amazing, hey?
And then the interesting part about it is even this podcast, I know, you know, this will become a good podcast because of your story that you have and the way we are talking about northern British Columbia. We'll have lots of people sitting there and say, we gotta go there.
I hope so. That'd be awesome.
How can we not? You know?
Yeah.
So that's what we want to get. But you know, so that while we having our discussion, there are at least tens of thousands of people will watch us. I know that because that's what happens to the podcasting.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And extremely powerful. You know, and you know, so that sort of thing.
Awesome. Well, I can appreciate that you say what you think and you stand up for what you believe in. That's pretty awesome. I feel like it's hard to find sometimes. It's hard to find that.
And the same applies to you, you
Yeah.
know, so that at least we'll work together on it, and we'll knock on the door of the city of Prince George.
That sounds
I'll
good.
call, say to Simon, hey Simon, come on.
Yeah. Okay, let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Anything else comes to mind, Meg?
No, I mean, that was great. I feel like we covered so much, and it's always exciting talking about Prince George and Northern BC, and especially with somebody that actually like views it the same way that we do, and is passionate about it and believes in it, and that we can get people up here and that we have so much to showcase. So yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for having me here and chatting with me.
Meg.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure. I'll give you a big hug, but we are hooked up.
Yeah, sounds good.
And it was a pleasure to have you on my podcast.
Absolutely. It was awesome. Thank you, John.
Yeah.